This is Blue Monday by New Order, but you knew that. Bernard Sumner, good afternoon.
Hi Richard, how are you doing?
Yeah, excellent. Do you like hearing this?
I like this song, yeah. Who is it?
Who wrote it?
Was it Joy Division? No. New Order. Band called New Order. Yeah.
No, but who within New Order wrote it? Do you all do it together? What's the story?
Well, you have to buy my book to find out, won't you?
This is you're here to tease the book. You're going to have to give us some little nuggets from the book.
Well.
But is it? What I'm saying
it was kind of a joint effort. Really.
Yeah.
A joint effort, but
is this the best song by the band?
No, I don't think so. I think to me it's more of a machine that makes people dance. So it's DJs. It's a track for club DJs. It's not like a heart-rending song, you know. No. But it certainly gets the audience going,
doesn't it?
To this day, you know. And if you're in a club, I was in a club in Berlin a couple of years ago, and they played it. They were playing cool house music, you know, and then they put this on. Everyone got up and started dancing.
It's full of joy, isn't it?
It works, yeah.
It's impossible not to be in a slightly better mood.
That beat.
Like you've got more energy when this is on, even now. Even now, when we're talking all over it, it's still effective.
Yeah.
So listen, Bernard, it's fantastic to speak to you on the programme. We're going to talk about your new book.
Yeah.
And why now? You could have written this years ago.
Oh gosh, well, I feel like I'm old enough now, and I thought I'd release it on the day that the United Kingdom broke up, because the real story isn't that, but the real story is that my book's coming out today.
Well, we're not allowed to talk about that today, so hence,
right, okay.
That's why you're on.
Right, all right.
You're filling the special vote today. Today's a day when we don't even debate that subject.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, I'll swerve back.
You're a distraction from that
book, yeah. It was just a little aside there, Richard. Let's forget that. I even mentioned it. I just feel old enough, really, and a book was written about me by another person that I've been signing copies of, and I don't think it's very accurate. I signed a copy in South America recently, and a young girl that had bought it said she paid £350 for it on the internet, and I said, well, actually, it's not a really great book. So I just thought the time was right for me to tell my side of the story and try and get as accurate a rendition of what happened through all those years down as accurately as possible and succinct. You can tell me right now, can't you?
Yeah, we can. Look, do you know what though? It's very well written. You know, it's one would argue unusually well written for a celebrity memoir.
What are you saying there? What you said for
anyway, that sounded like a backhanded compliment
for a dumb musician.
I didn't mean it to. But it is well written, and there's a nice evocation, I think, of your Salford childhood and your family and your community. As well, of course, as well as your life in music, which we shall come on to talk about. Joy Division.
Yeah, well, that upbringing in Salford was all part of what coloured my contribution towards the music of Joy Division and New Order. Was
what was Salford like then versus Salford now?
Hugely different. I think there's a passage in the book where I describe being in Ordsall, which is 2 miles away from where I am now. I could walk there. I could walk to the street where it happened, where it was a foggy November night, and there were the orange sodium street lamps, and it was freezing cold, and we were stood on the corner of the street, a gang of lads, about 6 or 7 of us, bored out of our skulls. Our car screams around the corner on 2 wheels with a girl leaning out the window screaming her head off, and in the book I say, to myself, surely there's got to be more to life than this, and that was 2 miles away from where we are now. And the BBC have moved right near that spot, and it has to be said that was, from people who grew up in Salford, that was a very admirable thing to do, and I think the people here really, in Salford and Manchester, really do appreciate that brave move.
Because
because we lost our industry. When the industry went, we got nothing left, and it's revitalised the city. It's called Media City here, and it's had a kind of osmosis-like effect going out throughout the city, and has helped revitalise the city. I think Manchester's a better place now than it was when I was growing up in Joy Division.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because there is a lot of there's an awful lot of nostalgia for the Manchester of the period that you're referring to there, isn't there? It was an exciting period, but very few people who reminisce about those days ever describe Manchester as being better now.
Well, I reminisce about my childhood, and I miss the the community spirit that was around there in Salford. There was a fantastic community spirit, and everyone kind of supported everyone else, and I don't think it's just Salford. I think that community spirit is very rare on the ground these days, and I do reminisce about that, and I do miss that, but I don't miss the industrial decay and the lack of jobs, and the lack of prosperity that we had in those days. I don't miss that.
Your mum had cerebral palsy.
She did,
which you of course also talk about in your book, Bernard Sumner. I'm assuming that did have quite a big impact on your young life and who you were, and to some extent who you are.
Well, it had a big impact on her, but not just that. She was a single mother, which was very frowned upon in those days. I'm talking, sort of late 50s, early 60s. So she had that kind of, I hate to use the word blight, but it was considered a blight in those days. So it made things difficult for her. And obviously she had cerebral palsy. She was born okay, and then after 3 weeks she had some seizures, which gave the cerebral palsy. But there was a lot of illness in my family. I don't know if it was, we lived down the street from a really bad chemical factory that was spewing out noxious fumes all day long, 5 days a week. Whether it was anything to do with that, I'm okay, touch wood. But yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult from seeing my whole family's health deteriorating, not just my mother's. And I suppose a bit of that would go into your music. I mean, people ask us about Joy Division, where this austere, heavy music came from. Because they expect us to be great people and be like the music was, and sort of shoegazing type people. We weren't like that at all. We were just fun-loving 21-year-olds, and we were, up to all sorts of nonsense and chasing girls around and doing all the things that you do when you're young. We weren't like the music sounded, but I guess some of what we'd experienced in life, as well as our somewhat brutal surroundings that we grew up in, affected the music. But we didn't know at the time that it was austere. It just sounded normal to us.
But that, I guess, makes the music, I suppose, more authentic in a way, doesn't it?
It makes it more poignant, yeah.
Poignant, yeah.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Let's take the news and come back and talk some more, if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
So Bernard Sumner is with me, obviously, as explained in that very answer, Joy Division. And of course, New Order. The name of the book is Chapter and Verse by Bernard Sumner. Chapter and Verse. In fact, the full title is Chapter and Verse, New Order, Joy Division and Me. Any questions? Welcome. 85058 at bbc.co.uk. It is very nearly 2:34. Let's get the latest news. On digital. Bernard Sumner is with me. We're talking about his book, which is Chapter and Verse, New Order, Joy Division and Me. Bernard!
Hi, Richard.
It's great, isn't it, this song? I mean, what's wonderful about creating music like this is that it's forever. Isn't that a great feeling?
It is, and we were, we're very aware. I mean, like I said earlier, we did fool around quite a lot in our long and illustrious career, but when we were in the studio making music, we realised that it would be around for a long time, and also that we would have to go out and play that music live around the world and talk about it in interviews. So we took that part of it very seriously.
But you don't know that. What you don't know at the time is whether or not it's forever, because most music isn't forever. I mean, literally, it's recorded somewhere, but most music doesn't become a meme, if you like.
Yeah.
And some songs do, and you don't know that when you write it, unless you have incredible foresight, and you're a bit arrogant. But I think. I think this is right. This is forever.
Yeah, I think the key is that the song's got integrity. I can't even say it. Integrity. the reasons that you're doing it are not really just to be famous and get on the TV and get on the radio and just be famous. So that when we were writing these songs, that was the number 10 on the list, really. We loved music, and we just wanted to write music that was beautiful and meant something primarily. And I think that's why they've lasted so long.
I think that's right. But actually, I was interested, that word I used, meme.
In fact, we didn't really want to be famous, to be honest.
Didn't you?
Well, it just meant more hassle.
What did you want?
Well, what's the advantage of being famous? What is the advantage?
People are nicer to you, that's the advantage.
They're not really nice, being nice.
But they come across as nice, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, okay, well, it just means...
Doors open. Women have sex with you. You get tables at restaurants.
Yeah,
you earn more money.
All right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I'm
you
right.
get followed around by the paparazzi and
Small
all that.
price to pay.
All that. No, it's a big price to pay.
I
agree with the rest, though. I agree with the rest.
Yeah, and I imagine you've experienced all of it. The word meme, there's in Richard Dawkins' book, The Selfish Gene, that's where the word meme comes from, and he says that the premise of that book is that genes are immortal, that we die, but genes live forever, and that memes, ideas, are a sort of modern version of a gene, and they, in some ways, they mimic natural selection. And actually, I think that's true. One of the greatest things you can aspire to in life is to create a meme that lives forever. So whether it's an idea, a political idea, a book, a great sitcom, a film, and almost none of us will ever do that. And you have done that with a lot of your music. Thus, you're immortal.
Oh, thank you.
That's where I was going with that.
I don't feel it. You can't be... yes, I agree with all that, but you can't do it intentionally. It's got to be a byproduct of in our case, having fun, really.
Great.
I mean, it's got to be a byproduct because... I think we found about music that the more we talked about it and the more we tried to get it right, the worse it was. So...
make it instinctive.
Yeah, make it instinctive. We made instinctive music and just... I think if you do that, you let your subconscious free to work on it and just stop thinking about it. Just get on with it. Don't make any sort of great plans about a direction or... style or what it's going to be. Just don't think about it. Just do it and get on with it and don't think about it, because I don't think you can't design a classic record. Say you take Love Will Tear Us Apart or Blue Monday. You can't do that thing that would just make it click with the general public. If you
do say in the book, though, that you had a trusted formula for writing Joy Division songs.
Yeah, that was what I meant by that was it's easy to write slow, dark, introspective, moody songs that are very reflective, and we were aware of that it's easier to write that kind of song. But what we actually needed, because we were primarily a live band, we played a lot of live gigs, and that was our main modus operandi, or whatever it is, and we needed ammunition for those live gigs, so we needed songs that were fast and dancey and beaty, and they were the hardest to write. So when we go in rehearsals and we start writing, we go, right, let's get one of them, written before we can, let's get two of them written before we write one slow, moody, introspective one. So that was the only kind of formula that we had, and that was, rather than that being a formula, I'd describe that as a discipline,
Yeah. Well, let's have a listen to a bit of Joy Division. So Bernard Sumner is here. He's talking about his book, Chapter and Verse, New Order, Joy Division, and me. And this is Joy Division, She's Lost Control. Bernard Sumner, there's so much to talk about from the book, and I just haven't really got time to go through it all. But
sure,
we're obviously going to talk about Ian Curtis here, and
yes.
He joined your band because he was less weird than the others who wanted to join.
With me and Peter Hook had got together, sort of learning our instruments, and the next step was to find a singer. Which proved to be rather difficult because we met quite a few crazy people during that process, and so we did with drummers as well. Drummers were probably worse, but we went through a load of auditions with singers. I wouldn't call them auditions. We'd just go around to the house and kind of look at each other and then decide no. And we just went through a lot of people, and then finally we met some. We didn't even meet Ian. I didn't know it. He called my house. I was the only person that had a phone, and the singers. We put an advert up in a record store in central Manchester. So the budding singers would call my phone, and I'd get all these phone calls off lunatics. It was a bit like opening a portal into your life for lunacy, and these people would call, and then one guy called that sounded semi-normal, and he said his name was Ian Curtis, and I went, well, I knew there were two guys called Two Ians that used to hang out together at gigs, and we knew them a little bit, acquaintances from going to gigs, and I said, are you one of the Two Ians? He said, yeah. I said, do you have a donkey jacket that says destroy or something on the back of it? He went, yeah. I said, okay, right, you can have the job. I said, he said, well, don't you want to audition? No, you can have the job. I'll just see. Then I went to the record store the next day and then just took the advert down. And because I was just sick of all these loonies phoning up and having.
So he just looked and felt right.
Yeah, well, I knew him
like
vaguely, and it was kind of an instinctual thing, and I knew that it was in the same music as us because he was going to the same gigs, and I did say, "What kind of music are you into?" I did ask him that important.
How
question.
good was he, do you think?
Ian was a natural born writer of songs, really, lyrics, books. I think that if he hadn't have if he hadn't have unfortunately committed suicide, and would have, he couldn't have continued in the band because his health was deteriorating so much. I think he would have gone and on to live somewhere very quiet and become a writer of books. So I think his whole world was the word, and I think he was destined to be that, to be some sort of literary figure. In the book, of course we're talking about your book here, which is Chapter and Verse, New Order, Joy Division and Me by Bernard Sumner. And you vividly describe hearing about Ian Curtis's death that you mentioned there. Can you take me back to that? Oh, do I have to? Obviously. I mean, it was a beautiful sunny day, and there was a band on Factory who were really, really good friends of ours called Section 25, and we were due to go out to America on the Sunday or the Monday, I think, the Monday, fly out to New York to do our first American tour, and we were all very excited about it, and I remember it being a really beautiful day and getting invited out to hang out with Section 25, and one of them's dad had an old bashed up speedboat, and we took it out on the river where they lived, and it was a really beautiful, glorious day. And getting back to their house and the phone ringing, and it was Rob Gretton, and you have to remember Ian had already tried to commit suicide once by taking an overdose, 3 weeks, a month, something like that previously. And Rob said, "Oh, I've got some bad news, Bernard." And I went, "What?" He went, "Ian's dead. He's committed suicide." And at first I couldn't take it in. I said, "What, he's tried again?" He said, "No, he's not tried again. He's dead." And at that point, the whole, bang, it was like it was obviously really upsetting that the whole room span, and it was just terrible thing, I mean, I was just completely in shock, and it turned all our lives around. Obviously, his family, his girlfriend, his family, his parents, all the band, and everyone involved with Factory, it turned our world upside down, and I don't think that to do that is ever a solution for whatever problems you've got. Whatever you've got, I'd say 99.9% of the time they are not insurmountable, and the best way that isn't the best way of dealing with it, and it threw us all into shock and into Great Depression, obviously.
Did the rest of the band worry about? Did you sit around talking about whether or not anyone could have done more to intervene or see it coming or anything like that?
We didn't sit around talking about it, but we all had a great deal of personal questioning. I think everybody in the band, tried to talk him out of it. I know I certainly did, and everybody, including Rob and everyone, tried to dissuade him. But Ian was a very a single-minded person, and I believe that he had a personal vocation to do that thing. It wasn't helped by the fact that he developed epilepsy and was on large amounts of barbiturates. In those days, it was treated with very heavy drugs, and I think that those drugs had a detrimental effect on his personality. I mean, you'd meet him and one day he would be laughing and smiling and joking, and meet him the next day he'd be in tears, and I think that was due to the drugs that he was on, and perhaps if he hadn't been on those drugs, and I just really hope that the treatment these days for epilepsy is much better than it was in those days. I believe if it hadn't been for those drugs, that perhaps he wouldn't have done it. But who knows,
Did you consider packing it all in after that?
Ian kept us. He kept aside a part of his personality that he never showed to anyone, I think, and only he knew. It was he kept. Yeah.
Did you consider packing it in after that?
No. Not once, because we'd had a taste of honey, and we felt what it was like to be on stage and to do a great performance and to make music and love music, and music. Joy Division had opened that world for us. It had opened our eyes, really, and we couldn't close those eyes again to it.
On New Order. When did you first discover electronic instruments?
In Joy Division, really. We not so much on Unknown Pleasures, which was the first album, because we just simply couldn't afford them. Although we did use studio technology very heavily, or Martin Hannett did. More to the point, we did use synthesizers on Unknown Pleasures. But we use more on Closer. I'm a bit of a techno head. I'm less of a techno head now than I was then. But I just remember looking at these electronic synthesizers, seeing all these knobs and buttons, and it was just like, great, what does that do? What does that do? What's an oscillator? What's an LFO?
How exciting. Like a child with one of those chemistry sets.
And
right?
I thought operating one made me look more intelligent than I actually was.
But also, there's the amount of things that you can do with it, I guess, are essentially infinite, aren't they?
It's not just that now, but with recording techniques as well. You can bend and manipulate sound and sculpt sound, and it's come to fruition now. What we were doing in the early 80s, we thought we would be able to do with synthesizers and music technology then what you can do now. You couldn't, but we worked to our limitations.
New Order are currently working on a new album without Peter Hook and bassist Peter Hook. I know Peter.
Yeah.
You've fallen out, haven't you?
He's fallen out.
Can you get over it?
I don't think so,
Why not? Don't you think, I always think stuff like this, life is too short for this
he's
kind
not
of thing,
been, well, let me just
look
say...
at what we were talking about a minute ago, it's just life is too short, isn't it? Can't you just find a way to get past it?
Well, we didn't sack him or kick him out of the band. He left. and he's gone to do his thing and utilise the heritage of the band in his own way. Now, whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing is down to personal taste.
But you don't think there's a way through this? You don't think you'll be friends again? You don't think he'll be back with you working again or back in the band? You think it's over?
He's a very angry man.
It's a shame. That's all I'm saying. It's a shame. Thanks for coming in. I always hog these interviews, and then I look at the text, and there's so many questions.
I think we need longer, don't we?
I know. There's lots of people talking about when they've met you. Someone here went to a New Order gig at the Hollywood Bowl. I went to the Hollywood Bowl for the first time the week before last. It's such a great venue, isn't it?
It is a great venue, and I remember playing there just about. Because that was in our rather hedonistic days.
So you were hammered on stage?
No, me? Never. No, no.
But that was a great experience, was it?
I was hammered before I went on stage.
I don't think you'd sobered up by the time you got there. I'm 45, and since my early teens, New Order has charted my life through ups and downs and provided solace when I needed it. Thank you, Bernard, for everything, says Aidan in a Hartlepool. I used to babysit Bernard's son James when he lived in Swinton. Good to hear you sounding so well, Bernard. Hope you and the family are all well. Love to James.
That's very
nice.
We
won't have a clue who I am. Still a huge fan, says Claire.
Thank you, Claire.
Bernard as part of Joy Division, and even more so as New Order. You've co-written the soundtrack of my life. Thank you for that. But also, ask that he, Stephen, and Gillian bury the hatchet with Peter Huck, no matter where the blame for their rift lies, says Neil of Durham, echoing my exact sentiments.
Okay, where does he want us to bury the hatchet? Which part of the body?
Great line. Thank you. Did you just come up with that? I've never heard that joke before.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
I'm a creative person.
You are. Stick it in your next song. Thank you very much indeed, Bernard. Wonderful to talk to you.
All right, Richard.
There's Bernard Sumner. The book is out right now. Bernard Sumner's book, which is called, the full title is Chapter and Verse, New Order, Joy Division, and Me.
Coming up next on 5 Live.
So, coming up after 3, Jack Reacher fans, brace yourselves. Best-selling author Lee Child